28 Years Later is a thrilling and gripping zombie horror movie that has a very heartfelt undertone. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you guys are new. My name is Josh and this is going to be my review of 28 Years Later. So for those of you that have never seen any of the prior entries into this franchise or have no idea what this movie is about, this is the third movie in the, I don't know what the official name for it is, but I just call it the 28 something later franchise, just because all the entries in this movie have always had the number 28 in them. The first one was called 28 Days Later, the sequel was called 28 Weeks Later, and this one is called 28 Years Later. So it's always just had the number 28 in front of a designated period of time. And that is because these movies' events take place after an initial zombie outbreak in, I believe it starts in the UK, if I'm not mistaken. I forget what part of the UK, but it starts out in the UK. So as the title of this movie suggests, this movie takes place 28 years after the initial zombie outbreak in the UK and focuses on a small group of survivors taking refuge on an island in the northern part of the UK. However, when a father and son decide to venture to the mainland, their lives are changed forever. So, starting off with the cast of this movie, I'm going to start off with the director and the writer. This movie was written by Alex Garland, who is the same person behind movies like Ex Machina, A24's Civil War, Annihilation, and other films. And this movie was directed by Daniel Boyle, who directed Slumdog Millionaire. The cast of this movie is as follows. We have Jodie Comer as Isla, Aaron Taylor-Johnson as Jamie, Ralph Fiennes as Dr. Kelson, Alfie Williams as Spike, Edving Writing as Eric, and Christopher Fulford as Sam. So starting off with my thoughts on this movie, I'm going to start off with the good. I really like the story of this movie. I really like the premise behind it. I think it's a really good horror slash thriller movie. And I also really like how this movie focuses on one family in particular and just the hardships and struggles that this family goes through as they try to not only survive the horrors outside, but also survive the horrors inside the home. I think that's a very unique take here, and I really like that aspect of the story. And I also like how gripping this story can be at times, and I really like the elements of suspense in this movie. And then one aspect of suspense that I particularly liked and that I thought this movie did really well was when we found out what was really going on with the mom in this movie. Isla, I believe is her name, if I'm saying that right. She is Spike's mother in this movie, and she is also Jamie's wife. And again, I'm not going to spoil anything, but once we find out like what all is going on with her in this movie, I think it's a very, again, heartfelt story. And I think it really humanizes the elements of this story, because it kind of essentially says, you know, even though the world outside might be going to crap, and even though there literally might be a zombie outbreak, there are certain elements about human life that we just cannot fend off and that we just cannot defeat, no matter how hard we might try to. I also really like the cinematography and the style this film was shot in, especially certain horror elements where I believe they use like an older style VCR camera, if that makes sense, but it's basically like a more grainy camera in order to capture close-ups of the zombies. I really like that element of this movie, and if I'm not mistaken, they've done that in previous entries as well, and so I feel like that is a really nice way of connecting the films together through a very similar cinematography style. And then lastly, I feel like this film very nicely continues the franchise. I feel like this is a very good third entry into this franchise, and I feel like this film does a really good job continuing the legacy of this franchise, especially with its horror elements and the gripping suspenseful elements. And then I also feel like this movie does a successful job opening the door for potential sequels. Again, I'm not going to spoil anything here, but this movie can successfully spin off two separate sequels or spin-offs, if you will, just because the direction of the story and also how this movie ends. And so I feel like this movie does that in a really good job as well. I feel like it's done in a very non-generic way. Like, I definitely didn't expect the film to go in the route that it does. But again, I feel like this film does a really good job continuing the legacy of the franchise and also simultaneously opening the doors for a potential spin-off or a sequel or both. Now, the only thing that I did not like about this movie is the beginning sequence, and although this is an integral part of a certain character's backstory, I don't know, I just didn't like it. Like, it's not a bad sequence at all. I just personally didn't like it. I feel like we could have added this in later in the movie. I think that's my main issue, is just the placement. Again, that's just a personal issue that I have with this film. It's not a bad sequence overall. It's just something that I personally did not like about this movie. But other than that, again, I do think that this is a really good horror movie, and I don't really have any major problems with it. And again, I like the story that is told here. I also like the suspense elements, the horror elements. And again, I also really like the way that this movie continues the franchise. Now, as far as my rating for this movie, I'm going to give this film an A+, simply because of the fact that there is a certain element of this story that doesn't come out, I would say, towards the third act of the movie that is it's a very heartfelt element. And I can't say it without spoiling it, so you're just gonna have to watch the movie to figure out what I'm talking about. But that is my main reason for giving this movie an A+, is just because the story here is so good. And again, I also really like all the elements, the horror elements, the suspense, and the story, and all of that here as well. So that is going to conclude my review of 28 Years Later. If you've seen this movie, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Did you like this movie? Did you not like this movie? Have you seen previous entries into this franchise? And as always, I just want to thank you so much for watching and tuning into this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye!